What is the future of energy? That's a really good question. Electric cars, they've become almost commonplace. But what about storing energy in hydrogen? In a hydrogen car like this one? To help us, Scott Nargar with Hyundai is here to answer a few questions. Scott?
Good morning.
Welcome. What can you tell us about hydrogen? First of all, how is it produced?
We can produce hydrogen from a number of ways, but the one that everyone's talking about these days is producing it from green resources, so using excess wind power, tidal, solar power to create it using electrolysis.
So in a way, that's just taking the energy from wherever and storing it in a tank.
Yeah, that's right. And we find in Europe and North America, it's happening right now where there's excess renewables, so it's curtailed during the day. They don't need it for the grid, so it's then used. People actually pay to take the energy off the grid and make hydrogen from it. So it's a great way of using the additional energy when there's too much wind shining, too much wind blowing, to actually to get it into another molecule, being hydrogen, and then have it stored and then use it when we need it.
Because they were talking about the efficiency of that, which was that it took more energy to produce the hydrogen than you got out of it at the other end. But it doesn't matter because that renewable energy would have to go somewhere or be wasted.
That's right. Yeah, you can't store. You can store in batteries, but they get to a certain point when they fall. But with hydrogen, we can keep producing it, keep storing it. We can inject it into gas grid, gas pipelines like we're doing in Australia now. It's happening right across Europe and North America and Asia. Everyone's looking at a way of using hydrogen to, one, use excess renewables, but also help complement the grid.
And the other thing is that you're not putting it into an internal combustion engine to burn like you do with petrol and diesel. You're putting it into, in this case, a fuel cell. And a fuel cell could also power a house. That's
right. The fuel cell stack in the NEXO next to us is about the size of a carton of long neck of beer.
Yeah. We all know how big that is.
Exactly. So about this big. And it's got no moving parts in it, but what it has is 440 plates. Each one of those plates makes between 0.8 and 1 volt. So under acceleration, you've got 440 volts coming out and going into an inverter, into an electric motor, just like an electric car. It's an electric car, we're just storing energy with hydrogen.
Brilliant.
And then going from there. So it's really a way of, so cars we use one stack, in a truck we use 3 stacks. It's like plugging Lego together. You put these cartons of box size of beer together and you're creating more energy to power larger mass.
And they store it in tanks. Tell me about the tanks.
Yeah, the tanks are quite thick. They're an inch thick
of
carbon fibre.
Not the coffee. The tank.
So this is a tank. They call it a Type 4 tank. So it's a plastic-lined carbon fibre tank. So
you can see that is quite thick. That would be, what, 3 centimetres or so?
Yeah, about 3-4 centimetres thick. And they're a great tank. So to test the tanks, we put them, do far more testing than we do for petrol tanks. So we over-pressurise them. So the normal operating pressure is 700 bar or 10,000 psi. We over-pressurise them to 20,000 psi. Then we pulse test them. Then we drop them from a crane on the concrete.
Yep.
Then someone picks it up, puts it into a fire bath. We then generate more pressure under heat in a fire bath, and then we fire rounds at it through a gun. So, a normal car wouldn't pass the first test, let alone having rounds fired at it, over-pressurised in a fire bath.
In the real world, you'll have 3 tanks of this construction in one of these NEXO vehicles, which we're bringing the review to later in the week. How big are they?
Yeah, the tanks hold, in total, there's 6.33 kilos of hydrogen. So
it doesn't sound like a lot, but they're about this long.
They're about this long and they're about that thick, about the diameter. So
they're huge.
They're about this thick. So
they're huge.
But they're all tucked under there quite nicely. They're not impacting the rear passenger height for comfort. They're not impacting the load carrying space. They're tucked in nicely under between the chassis of the vehicle, between the front and the rear axles. But each tank holds just over 2 kilos of hydrogen each. But think about your gas bottle at home. It's holding 9 kilos of propane.
Yeah.
We've got something holding 6.33 kilos of gas, and we're getting over 660 kilometres. In fact, this exact car here, you'll see under all the red dust under the engine bay.
We did.
This car here set the world record earlier this year, going from Essendon Airport. Our stretch target was Broken Hill. We made all the way to Silverton, which is great because we're Mad
And then you kept going.
Another 50 k's into the desert. Unfortunately, we didn't have cameras and lights and things, and we ended up driving a lot further for a lot longer. So got half a k short of 888 kilometres.
888. And the thing about driving 888 k's in one of these Nexos is that it does have an auxiliary battery, so to capture things like recuperative braking and all of that sort of stuff, to extend that range even further. But with a pure battery car, once it runs out of batteries, it runs out of batteries, and that's it. There's no way to charge it. You'd have to tow it.
That's right, you have to tow it or take it to the nearest DC charging station, get a rapid charge up. But with hydrogen cars,
fill this tank.
Yeah, 3-minute refilling. We've got great range in the vehicle, so ours, our competitive vehicles, especially heavy vehicles, trucks and buses, we've all got great range. And it's also, if you do run out of gas, it then goes onto a battery. If you do run out of battery and you've given every warning in the world to pull over, then you're going to call out the NRMA or one of the motoring clubs. And what we do see in Germany and other places, so the ADAC in Germany has a guy some scuba tanks. He pulls out the back of his ute, he drives up, and all you're doing is taking taking the pressure from the tank and equalising with the pressure in the car. So you might get 20, 30, 40 grams in there.
And
you might
that's
get 50 k's.
Also how this machine behind us works, which is essentially a large tank and pump.
That's right. We pressurise the hydrogen up. It goes into the high pressure tanks, and all
goes
it is
into
a
the car
cascade
here?
fill. Yeah, it just goes from a cascade through the hose here into the vehicle. All we're doing is equalising what pressure we've got in the hydrogen station with what's in the car. And in this case, it's a half pressure fill. It gets us up to 350 bar in Europe, and the station.
Allegedly, it's 300 odd kilometres, but it's not.
Yeah,
we tried that the other day. Got 220, and you can see that it's a really easy process. You just walk around to the front of the machine, unlock the card just like you would at a petrol bowser, connect it up, pull the handle, and with a few little twiddles inside, this thing's filling your car, and in 3 minutes you've got about, well, allegedly 300 kilometres, but it's not, it's 218.
And this station is a 2004 model station. It's a very old station.
Let's have a quick look at that.
Yep.
Excuse the noise. We'll just have to talk around it, pile driving over yonder. When the gas comes, it arrives over here.
That's right, it comes in packs. So we get these from Corgas in New South Wales here in Port Kembla. It's one of the oldest gas plants in Australia, so they come in 12 packs. It's a 200 bar of pressure, so it goes through into the manifold, comes across into electric motor, which then goes through and powers the compressor at the front of it, so a big piston diaphragm compressor. And that takes it from 200 bar up into 400 bar in the tanks here. So the tanks just hold it at 400 bar, so we can cascade down into the vehicle.
And then it goes through all these lovely pipes.
Yeah, there's a lot of piping here. This is a 2004 model station. We purchased it from the States in 2014, but it is very old technology, this station, so it shows you how long it's been around for. This is actually in a warehouse in Texas, doing a couple of thousand fills a year on forklifts. So we purchased it, and it was a way of getting hydrogen into a car. So we got the first left-hand drive iX35 fuel cell vehicle here in 2014. We needed to refuel it, so this was the best way at the time. Obviously, we've moved a long way from this technology now, and we're actually replacing this station with basically a newer version of this made by the same company. But
it's just a pure coincidence that the electric motor is Hyundai.
It's got a Hyundai electric motor, but the new station is in the same footprint. We'll have 700 bar of pressure, so full pressure. We'll have pre-cooling, so we'll chill it before it goes in the car to get a 3-minute fill. And we'll make 20 kilos of green hydrogen on site in something the same footprint. In fact, it'll be smaller. We won't need this area here because we won't be storing hydrogen. We'll be making it and dispensing it into the vehicle. So
that means that you would be able to, if you had the money, you could put one of these things in at home and you could make your own hydrogen.
Potentially, yeah. So
probably be cheaper just to buy the hydrogen from somewhere else.
It is, and that's where traditional forecourts and service stations are going to come into play. When I'm working in Europe, I've used about 50 hydrogen stations across Europe, across many of the countries, especially Germany. There's 92 operational stations in Germany today, another 15 under construction. So if you want to have a look at a great app on your phone, look at H2 Live. It's an app looking at all the stations in Europe. Zoom into Germany and you'll see what's happening. So you'll see who operates it, how they take payments, when it's operational, how much hydrogen was filled up last, what program funded that station, and a map to get there from where your current location is. So it's a great system.
Extraordinary. We get asked about leaks a lot. People get concerned about leaks because of explosions and so forth. But hydrogen is 7 times lighter than air.
Actually, 14 times lighter.
14 times lighter than air.
So
there
when
you got it wrong.
So if it escapes from one of the swage locks connections here or anywhere here on the hydrogen station, it's rising at 14 times, or it's 14 times lighter than air. So it's 80 kilometres an hour. It's actually going up, and this is why the roof's perforated. If it escapes, it's going up and dispensing very quickly. When we've had a leak here, actually this valve here has actually had a leak. I could get a sensor and actually pick up the leak right at the connection here. Actually, it comes out of the little hole here when there's a leak. But as soon as I got within an inch, half an inch above it, the sensor couldn't even pick it up. The dispersion rate of hydrogen is so wide, and it disperses with the air so quickly that it actually loses all its volatility very quickly.
And the same would go with cars.
Same with cars.
Yeah.
We've got sensors in the cars. The tanks have sensors under the car and inside the vehicle. If it picks up a whiff of hydrogen anywhere, or it thinks there's a leak because of everything's monitored in the vehicle, it'll shut the system down and run on the battery.
Here is one here.
Yeah, this is the tank out of the previous generation, the iX35 fuel cell vehicle, but it's basically the size of the hydrogen tanks we've got in the car today, so it gives you an idea of what they look like. That inch thick of carbon fibre. The regulators will be on the ends, but they're very, very strong.
And what did we say this weighs? 38 kilos.
38 kilos a tank.
Holy moly. And this is an EV charging station for home?
Yeah, so this is an EV charging station for home. It's an AC station, so that's the plug for the car for AC charging. So you'd find that on your wall of your garage or in your apartment. Ioniq
5 review to follow next week.
Nice segue.
Here we have it. So walk me through this. This is the fuel cell, I assume.
Yeah, so this is the fuel cell. This is all Horizon educational equipment. So this is a fuel cell.
That's actually producing hydrogen.
Yes, that can produce hydrogen. So that's a fuel cell as well. And there's basically one inside the device here. So what I do is I put the canister into the device here. My solar panel is connected up. I put water in the top. We'd make hydrogen. I then put the container into this device here, and there's a little fuel cell in here, and I can use it to power mobile phones or charge things or operate things when I don't have batteries around, or I'm camping for a prolonged period of time, or the military use this.
And how many charges would you get out of that? 2, 3?
4 or 5. Yeah, it's actually holding 10 kilos. So 10 litres of hydrogen at 30 bars. So there's 10 litres of hydrogen in a nickel metal.
No.
Yeah, so
and that's the size of a battery, look.
Yes, it's a bit heavy. It's heavy, but it's actually got like a metal inside that actually absorbs and sucks in the hydrogen. So there's so much in there.
This thing takes the hydrogen produced over yonder.
Yep.
Puts it into there. 10 litres worth, 10 Coke bottles.
Yep. Into that small device.
Into that.
Yep.
Then that goes into this. And then it converts this power from
10 litres.
Gas.
Yep. Powers the device.
to something that can go into your mobile phone.
Yep. And what we're doing here is exactly the reverse of what happens in the car. So now we're using water and renewable energy to make hydrogen. In the vehicle, we're taking the hydrogen and we're splitting it back out. So in a hydrogen fuel cell, just happen to have one that I've prepared earlier. So this is quite an old hydrogen stack. They're actually not made of carbon anymore. They're made of aluminium, stainless steel. So that's one
incredibly light.
So in a fuel cell, there's 440 of those, and they make the power to
just
power the generator. So what we're doing here is using energy and water, renewable energy and water, to make the hydrogen in a vehicle. We're actually doing the reverse. We're taking the hydrogen and making energy to power the vehicle. The byproducts, energy and water. So exactly the reverse of what we do to make it.
You raise an interesting point. The only thing that comes out of the alleged tailpipe of the NEXO is water.
It's water and purified air. So we take out 99.9% of all the fine particulate matter. So the dash will actually show you, and the NEXO downstairs has got on the dash now. It'll show you how much air you purified.
So that means that the car is actually good for the environment.
The car is actually better for the environment. It's actually a net positive because it's actually scrubbing the air clean the more you drive. And a truck or a bus or a train or a ferry is going to have 4, 5, 10 times more fuel cell stacks in them. So you're going to be scrubbing and cleaning 10 times more air. It doesn't get any better, does it?
And powering the future.
And powering the future. So we're looking outside here. Plenty of sunshine, plenty of wind, plenty of space. Why wouldn't we be putting in more renewables and powering our future? Why are we importing 97% of our fuel from overseas? And that's going to start the transition. Those companies today that are powering their stations with imported fuel are all looking to get into this space.
Just extraordinary.
It's their parent companies overseas. They're the stations I'm using in Germany and London and in California. So we know when countries plan to ban the sale of internal combustion, they either move to electric cars or they move to hydrogen, depending on the mass of the vehicle. But
theoretically, you could power a charging station from hydrogen.
Yeah, you can.
If you wanted to power those old-fashioned, electric cars.
We'll use stationary fuel cells to power houses and cities.
Extraordinary. All right, Scott. Well, thanks for that. That is absolutely brilliant. I am a convert. And I've driven the NEXO, watch for the review, this week. I think it's brilliant.
We look forward to getting into further generations of cars and everything else we bring in.
Thanks for watching.